special budget meeting of our council this September the 8th, 2021. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. The group shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government, and we also ask that you please silence all electronic devices. With that, I call this meeting to order, and could we all stand for our invocation? Could I ask that we have a moment of silence? Thank you. If you'll please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Trace.
Here.
Councilmember Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Askew.
Here.
Mr. Sturgeon, do you have any agenda updates?
No, Mayor, I do not.
There are no presentations at this time. Brings us to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. If you do come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone?
No one.
Is anyone in the audience wanting to speak?
I just have one question. I just want to make sure that the elevator and front door were working and open, because I know we had issues right there. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Councilman Trace. With that, we move to the next item. There are no presentations under our consent agenda, so we will move on to public hearing number 1. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 1?
First of two public hearings for resolution number 2021-222R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final ad valorem tax millage for the City of St. Cloud for fiscal year 2021-2022, the same being adopted prior to the adoption of the final budget for said period.
Ms. Collazo, I guess you've come forward to speak.
Yes. Good evening. Wendy Collazo, Finance Director. As per Florida Statute 200.065, this is one of 2 requested public hearings that are required in order to adopt the millage, a final millage. At this time, the City of St. Cloud will be adopting a 5.1128. This is 5.96% above the rollback rate of 4.8250. In a rollback rate, just to give some history, same tax dollars are assessed as the previous tax year, not including any new construction. And this is measured as a millage rate. This ensures that the increase in the taxable values for the existing properties are considered for ad valorem tax. Some key takeaways that we'd like to share this year for millage, just some information. Mill rate is, of course, a tax rate. This is the amount of tax payable per dollar on the assessed value of property. Also used in property tax, the formulation is 1 mil is equal to $1 in property tax levied per 1,000 of a property excess value. Government entities, just like our local municipality here at beautiful St. Cloud, entities set millage rates based on the total value of this property within their jurisdiction. These property taxes are calculated by multiplying such assessed value, the taxable value by the mill rate, and then dividing that sum by 1,000. So just to clarify for some, anybody in the audience or anybody reading, your property tax levied equals the mill rate times the taxable property value, and then we divide that by 1,000. We gave you an example. If the millage rate currently right now is 5.1128, as it has been in the past 8 years, and a taxpayer's personal residence is taxable at $100,000, then using that formula above, the homeowner's tax bill for that residence will be $511.28, which again means $1,000 assessed for every value. $5 is owed on property taxes. Final ad valorem millage. Here's your millage rate history dating back to 2016, 2017, all the way across, staying at a constant 5.1128, which is the intent for the proposed adopted year of 2021, 2022. Your rollback rate is in red. As you can see, the fluctuations between 2016 and 2017 across 2021, 22. We are at 4.8250 in 2021, 22 for a rollback rate. Final ad valorem tax value, just to give you the proposed millage rate as well as the average property tax value here in the city of St. Cloud, 5.1128, with an average property tax value based on the local parcels right now at $210,552. The average yearly homeowner cost right now is $1,077. Just to do some math together, if we were to go back to the rollback rate, we'd save each resident about $70 a year, which would then again cost us about $894,992 that we would lose in budget. Some of the highlights and services provided by this portion of the ad valorem tax millage: in public safety, we cover emergency management services and, of course, law enforcement. In engineering and utilities, we take care of utilities, roads, walkways, and lighting. This is where we're putting these portions of tax towards. In community-related, we do it parks and facilities, recreation programs, the cemeteries. And then in community development, we allocate these dollars to public transport, development, buildings, licensing, planning, urban design, and sustainability. The final ad valorem tax rate millage, again, 5.1128. This is needed to fund the following increase in our fiscal year 21-22 proposed general budget: a 9% increase overall in personnel cost. This was due to 3% of cost of living adjustment, also known as COLA, at $1,007,110. 11 new positions in the general fund at $665,076. Increase in retirement contributions of $694,443. Increase in all fringe benefits across the board in FICA, life, dental, health, and disability of $611,431. Increase in emergency overtime allocation, $175,000, and in all other categories and expenditure, $30,739 is what the millage rate proposed will be used to fund this year in the general fund. At any time, if you have any questions or would like to discuss, please feel free to stop me.
I believe Councilman Askew has a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we factoring in the possible of the police contract as well in this? Because I don't see that in there. Unless you got it hidden someplace good, but.
Not hidden, sir, but we have factored that, and we do have some preliminary costs, which we've already covered without using any budget amendment needed and using the budget that we've allocated. We have buffers set up for things like that.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Thought so.
Good question. Plaza?
A 9.5 increase in operating costs that totaled $1,280,754 is the other part of due to the cost of goods and services and increasing in level of services. This is allocated towards public safety, $299,951. We've had a savings or decrease of $555,054 in transportation. In Parks and Recreation, increase of $732,211, and in finally General Government Services, allocating $803,646. Staff recommends the approval of Resolution Number 2021-222R, and requests that City Council approve such resolution of 2021-222R.
I would like to express my appreciation to you and all the staff for all the hard work you guys have done and put together in this thus far. Do you have anything else at this point?
No, sir.
Would anyone in the public like to comment or step forward and ask questions? If not, we will then entertain questions and/or comments or a motion by council.
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is the first of two public hearings, so you don't really actually need a motion. You just need to give the opportunity for the public to speak to him.
Thank you very much. Do we have any? Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I know during our workshop, I think we all kind of gave the desire to, at some point, go to the rollback rate, at some point, talk about decreasing that millage. The rollback rate generates $900,000, or using the same millage generates about $900,000 worth of additional ad valorem. But in this budget, we have a 3% COLA, which is about $1 million for the city. So like that money that we would have tried to do is being used to retain staff, to try to get them up to the level of, I know everyone's getting, approached about, moving agencies or going back into the private sector. So that's, kind of our attempt at providing more funds and just increase, keeping up with the cost of living for a lot of those positions. So I just want to, I know we talked about it, and I know there was pushback, and for good reason, and I appreciate that, and I think it's money well spent. And then one question, I guess. So our overall citywide taxable value was $210,000.
Yes, average. On the parcels we pulled, sir, to be honest with you, we pulled about 3/4 of the parcels that were available that we could pull, that we had given the time frame, and 210 was the average. It was skewed a little bit, and I just thought, I stayed with the conservative side again, because it fluctuated up to 275,000 if you added new communities and development, but it was really, that skewed much more to say that we were going to provide more savings that really weren't presently available for the residents. So I thought 210 was the most accurate, taking 3/4 of the parcels that we could pull right now.
And that's taxable, so there was the, if folks have their $50,000 exemption on top of that, or I guess you could have more exemption than that, but, so that's, the value's actually
The
could be higher.
yes, it's actually higher. The 210,554 does factor in the homestead and also veterans with disabilities that are not paying any taxable. So we took those variables and gave it the median, that's where we landed at 210.
Okay, that was higher than I was expecting. Thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
And also, the taxable value is less than the market value.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what, 30-40%, something like that, so.
Councilmember Askew.
Yeah, that was basically what I was going to bring up. House sold right near my house. It was assessed at 67. They sold it for 240. So
Yes, sir.
now it'll be reassessed, probably a little bit higher than it was before, but that's sort of where those numbers are skewed.
If they don't, I didn't realize you can, there is mobility on your exemption,
Right.
which I didn't realize until I was talking to someone about that. And yeah, I moved my homestead exemption because I figured every time that there's a sale, you kind of get the re-up.
There's also portability on the Save Our
Portability,
Homes.
that's what it was.
Portability.
That's what it was, portability and Save Our Homes that I was surprised about.
Any other discussion? Any other action we need to take, Mr. Mazeres?
No, sir?
Thank you. Want to move on?
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 2?
First of two public hearings for resolution number 2021-223R. A resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final budget for the City of St. Cloud for fiscal year 2021 and 2022, the same being adopted following the adoption of the final millage rate for said period.
Again, good evening, Wendy Collazo, Finance Director. As per Florida Statute 166-241, we are required to adopt a budget each fiscal year, including a 5-year CIP this year, which you were handed a draft in during workshops as well. The amount available from taxation and other sources are included here, and balances are being brought forward from prior fiscal year as needed. They must equal, of course, total appropriations to expenditures and reserves. In other words, the adopted budget must be balanced net zero. Okay. Next slide, we're going to the final budgeted revenues for fiscal year 21-22. Revenues in millions are represented to you in this graph at 171 million in revenue. The pie allocated there, I'll read it for you as we go through. The general fund at 58.7 million, or 34.3% of it. Special revenue in red at 28.6. That's 16.17% of budget. In green, the debt service fund at $3.8 million, or 2.2. Your purple this year, capital projects fund, $1.8 million, or 1.1% of budget. And $66 million, or 38.6% in the light blue at utility funds. Internal service revenues in your yellow and or mustard colored at $9.8 million, or 5.7% of budget. And finally, economic development funds at $2.3 million and or 1.3% of budget. That is your allocation in revenue by funds for you. Moving on to expenditures, as we noted before, in order to adopt this budget, we are at net zero or balance with revenues. As you see, we're at $171 million to the liking of the revenues as well as expenditures. Again, those segregations are as follows. In the general fund, $58.7 million, 34.3%. Each of these allocations will all be even to the revenues, and I'll read them for you again. Special revenues, $28.6 million, or 16.7%. Debt service in the green at $3.8 million, fully balanced at 2.2%. I'd like to note that on your debt service fund, you should congratulate or take a good bow as far as how far you've come from 2016, and that you have 2.2% left of debt to pay. It's a great feat, so I thought I'd note it for you. Capital projects, $1.8 million, again, 1.1% of your budget. Utility funds at $66 million, or 38.6%. And your internal service funds at $9.8 million balance, or 5.7%. And finally, economic development funds at $2.3 million, or 1.3% of budget, fully balanced. Taking those 171 million, we'd like to present to you revenues by function so you can see the diversification of those funds and where they're going. 20.4 or 12% of those are going into reserves. 23.4 or 14% are going to general service. 33.1 million or 20% of budget is going to public safety. 41.5, 24% of that is in utilities. In the light blue in public works, 3.9 or only 2% going into budget for that. Debt service, again, Parks and Rec, 8.7 million or 5%. Debt service in the dark blue at 8.9 or 5%. Economic, $500,000, didn't really reach a percent. It's less than 1%. And finally, in other transfers, $30.6 million or 18%. That's $171 million in revenue, and its diversification and purpose. Your next slide, presenting those revenues in the general fund for $58.7 million. Again, the diversification of those revenues and where they're coming from, those sources, are fund balance at $8 million, fund balance at $8 million or 13.6%. Ad valorem, 15.3, 26.1%, and of course one of your highest revenue sources here. Other taxes, $900,000 or 1.5%. Licenses and permits, $2.2 million or 3.7% of budget. Intergovernmental revenue in the light blue at $7.7 million or 13.1%. Charges for services, $5 million at 8.5%. Miscellaneous, fines and revenues is the small sliver at $100,000 or 0.2%, 0.2% there. Miscellaneous revenue, it is at $4.9 million or 6.5, the red and the 6.5%. And finally, other financing sources at 14.6 million or 24.9% of budget. To counter that, in the general fund, again, expenditures at a balanced 58.7 million, $2.6 million or 4% going into reserves. General government service taking in $25.8 million or 27% of budget. Public safety at 30 million, 0.7 or 52% of your general fund budget. 1.9 million or 3% for transportation. 7.4 million or 13% for parks and recreation. And finally, for other financing uses, 300,000 or 1% of budget in the general fund, equaling out to $58.7 million. General fund projected fiscal year 2021 reserves. As you can see here, this graph just depicts the existing policy sticking us in 12.5%, which equates to $6.4 million in the light blue, in the dark blue. Our 2019 actual fund balance was $9.1 million, well above the fund balance policy. Our 2020 actual, $10.6 million, again, well above the fund balance policy. Our 2021 estimated right now is $13 million. And finally, our 2022 budgeted would be $13.3 million. All those highlighted in the different categories to show you where we well exceed the fund balance policy at this time at 12.5%. Finally, this is just a recommendation for the approval of resolution number 2021-223 for the first public hearing of the fiscal year 21-22 proposed budget.
Thank you once again. Would anyone in the public like to make a comment or come forward to address the council? If not, we will entertain questions and/or comments from council. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I'm just going to echo the mayor's sentiments. Thank you very much, Ms. Colazo, and your team for putting this together. I know the first few years I was on council, I was beginning to think, like, I don't know, I just could never understand the numbers. The numbers never made sense. The numbers seemed to move. Like, I would be told something, the next time I asked the same question, I'd be told something else, but that doesn't happen anymore. So thank you very much
Thank you.
for everybody putting this together. I know it's got to be a monumental effort for sure.
Councilmember Trace.
Echo your comments. I mean, I'm sure this isn't fun, and I'm sure you're already talking about next year's budget, even though this one's not adopted yet. I just want to pick up on one item of, we're putting $1.8 million into capital projects for this year, and we have a 5-year capital improvement program that is going to require a whole lot more than that in the future. So just keeping our eye on that, of making sure we're keeping up with aging infrastructure and then what new infrastructure is needed for project moving forward.
Absolutely. I think it's a great note. I think that, we're well aware of that. I think that's why we did what we did, not to inject so much, but to actually complete and go through with what we have. We don't like some of the levels on the CIP right now as far as where reserves will be left off if we were to do it. It's just not fiduciarily what we want to do. Like in the general fund, you'll see leaving it at levels at $6 million. Still in policy, but doesn't make us comfortable. So that'll get readjusted. We've talked to the city manager about having a get-together with directors to really start strategizing in January. He potentially offered February for capital to really look into it, and so we're on top of that.
Good. Well, and we're past couple of years, we've tried a lot to pay down the debt that's already there, and then,
Yes.
the need is coming up as well.
Councilmember Askew.
I guess it's my turn. Yeah, from day one, when I came on council, it was like this giant sheet that we just couldn't figure out, but kudos to you and your team. And I disagree with you, Mr. Trace. I think they actually enjoy doing budgets. So I can see her wrapping her head around this thing. So we appreciate everything you do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Comments from council? Well, I'm certainly thankful for the way God has blessed us. I've talked with a lot of other mayors, and not all the mayors have certainly had the benefits of having some of the increases that we've had to our revenue. And so I'm just really thankful for that and thankful for the work that you guys have done, putting everything together. And I'm sure hoping we can continue to take good care of all of our employees and continue to shut a back door that we certainly don't need, that's for sure. Then I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Under council action, there are no presentations at this time. Mr. Manzares, do you have anything for us?
I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Mrs. Sturgeon, do you have anything for us?
No, Mayor, I do not.
Ms. Matheny, I'll give you another shot at it.
Nope, I don't have anything, thank you.
Councilmember Trace?
Thank you.
Councilmember Askew?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Thank you, too. We're at the information and report section, Thursday, September the 9th, 2021. There will be a city council meeting at 6:30 in City Hall Council Chambers. There are no presentations at this time, and there is no additional business. We will be adjourned. Thank all of you for coming and being a part of this exciting council meeting tonight. We're incredibly grateful for your attendance.